Okay, so our topic for today, the dark side of autonomy. But first of all, let me introduce us. So this is Carolin, I'm Arabella. We work both at Cozy, and Cozy is a software services company which is based in Darmstadt, in Germany. And we build digital products for and with our customers. We have a total of about 50 employees and work mostly in a hybrid setup since 2020. And yeah, the both of us are psychologists and we work as Scrum Masters and Agile coaches at Cozy. So that means we support both teamwork and organizational development in our company and also for our customers as well. So today we want to talk about the shiny side of autonomy at work, but also about its darker sides, as this plays a huge role in today's work life and in an agile setting as well. But before we dive deeper into it, we would like to hear what feelings you relate to autonomy to make it a bit more tangible for you. And in order to do so, it's not really working with me. Thank you. So throughout the talk, we will use Mentimeter to get everyone involved and to build up on your thoughts. And therefore, I'd ask you to take out your mobile device, also for our first little checkup here, and scan the QR code that is displayed here or go to the website. I recommend your mobile device as it's easier to type in the answers there and still follow with the talk. So take out your phone, scan the QR code or go to the website, and then when you open the website, you can enter the code that is displayed here to get ready for our little check-in. Okay, so you don't have to put in answers yet. Let's wait a few more seconds so everyone is ready. If anyone is having troubles, please let us know. Okay, seems like everyone is ready. So then I would like to invite you to close your eyes for a moment and go back to a situation where you worked autonomously on something, where you had autonomy at your work. Think about how you felt then. What feelings come up to you? What was it like back then? And when you know your answer, you can open your eyes again and enter your result in the Mentimeter. And then we're curious to see your answers. Okay, then let's have a look on what feelings you relate to autonomy. Okay, so we have big in the middle, freedom, empowering, creative, going to lunch alone as well, trusted, liberating. So a lot of positive emotions actually.
Motivated.
As well. Do we have something negative already here? Oh, lost and frustrated.
Unsure, I see.
Playful.
And scared. Quick is interesting as well.
Yeah.
I don't know whether chaos is like positive or negative. It depends if you like chaos.
True. That's true. Yeah. Some like your arousal there. And ease as well. So maybe the opposite in that continuum. Okay. Very interesting. Yeah, this I think already gives us a better understanding and more vivid picture of autonomy. That was what we intended here. Thank you for your answers. Maybe keep this picture in mind as a reference. And now let's have a look at the definition.
So this is the more boring part, but it has to be done for completeness, that we are all talking about the same thing. So autonomy in the work context is understood as the degree of freedom, independence, and discretion that professionals have in relation to the execution of their own work tasks. I will just let this stand for now. I guess we all have an idea of what autonomy is. And for us, the feeling that is related to it is much more important. And for me, this picture shows it very well, because for me, being autonomous is feeling very liberated and powerful and also fulfilled. And this feeling is not only positive for me, but also for you, as we just saw. And autonomy does not only feel good, but it's also a fundamental psychological need, at least if we're according to the self-determination theory. This theory describes why we do what we do. So it's a theory about behavior and motivation. And according to this theory, there are three basic needs that are directly connected to motivation and also well-being in human beings. And those three parts that we need to be motivated, to feel happy, are relatedness, competence, and autonomy. Relatedness or belonging means that we want to feel connected, that we want to care about other people, and that we want to be cared for. So being a part of a group, being part of a social construct is very important to us. And this is something that motivates us as well. And if this need is fulfilled, then we're happy. The second thing, the competence, is that we want to feel effective in our environment. We strive for mastery in things that are important to us. We want to become better. We want to be good in something. And also this motivates us and makes us happy. And the third thing, which is the topic of this talk, is autonomy. So people want to feel in control of their own life. They want to have a choice. They want to being wholehearted behind the things that they are doing. So we want to find our behavior congruent with ourselves. We want to do something that matters to us and in a way that we can agree with our identity. So this is the third basic need that we as humans have to be fulfilled, to be motivated in doing things. So looking at this, then it's no wonder that in the last few decades, the world changed from an authoritarian organization, so where the bosses tell you exactly what to do and when, where we have a conformist culture, where we have low autonomy, everybody's just doing what they're told to walk in the direction of the goal. This was a few decades ago, maybe it's like this in a few companies still, but many companies and organizations change to a more innovative organization where we have a collaborative culture with high autonomy, where the boss just gives the goal and says, okay, this is what we want to reach. We want to reach the stars. So try to find out how. And let's go there in a collaborative way. And people have the autonomy to find this way or the way that they think is best for them. And this change, why did it happen is kind of the question. It was not, we had this need for autonomy in us for the whole time. It was only discovered in the self-determination theory, but the need was there all the time. So what changed since then? There are several things. First, we now have a different attitude towards people. As I said, the self-determination theory, the first research began in the 1970s, but it became popular in the 2000s. So when the change became more fluent. So we now have a different attitude towards people. We think that people want to do good work. It's not like that we have to tell them exactly what to do, but they have an intrinsic motivation to do good work and to do a good job. The second thing that changed is that we have much more well-educated people. It's not only the bosses that know a great way to do things, but every one of the employees does as well. This is also because of the availability of information. We live in a digitalized world where you can just type something into Google and you get an answer, you get information everywhere. Now, ChatGPT. it's so easy to get all the information that were very hard to get a few decades ago. So these are the prerequisites that changed and made this change possible. And there's also a need to change in today's world because we now live in a much more complex environment. Again, digitalized world, globalized world, and we already solved all the easy problems. When you think of, I don't know, landing on the moon was an easy problem. Now we have the harder problem of reaching Mars. So all the easy problems were solved, only the complex ones are left. So we have to work together to also solve those complex problems because one person cannot do it on their own. And with all of this comes a more individual lifestyle in the society. So we don't have the 9-to-5 work where you go to the office every day anymore, where everyone is remotely, everyone is craving for a great work-life balance. Everybody is trying to get job and family under one hat. So we have very different lifestyles in society. We have workation and all of the stuff that is enabled by this, but also is a new need that we have to fulfill to be attractive as companies and to get employees that will work with us. So this is why we needed to shift from the authoritarian organizations to the innovative ones. And with this, we need the high autonomy and collaborative culture that we have today. And that comes with great benefits, but also with some challenges.
Carolin, just a quick one. There's a comment on the chat from Amanda. She says, well, this may be an issue with differing cultures and education systems around the world. Might suggest that this could start to not happen. And as an educator, I'm not seeing this happen. Any thoughts?
And not seeing what exactly happened?
Amanda, would you mind unmuting and sharing your comments?
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be a major thing. When I'm listening to your description and definition, I'm British by culture. I have right now, I'm an academic at a university in the UK, in the business school, and I deal with project management as well as cybersecurity as my background. Now, most of my students are master's levels, come from all over the world, and a lot of the education system where they're coming from is still very much rote learning. They get told what they have to learn, how to learn it, and it's repeat. Yet when we're asking them to think critically, so autonomously in the way they do their studies and learning, they find it difficult to make that transition from relying on the teacher or leader to actually thinking for themselves. And this is from Asia, some parts of Africa, but these are the people coming into the workplace in a lot of large organizations or small organizations in a supply chain, a global supply chain. That's where my observation comes from. It's what I've actually experienced, and I'm not talking one or two, I'm talking hundreds, is what I've experienced.
This is a very good point, and I think it's also discussed in Germany a lot because we have the school system and even the university system is very strict. You have a very strict path that you have to go, and you get told a lot of things. You write exams where only one answer is the right one. So yes, this is definitely a point and a challenge with autonomy that we actually did not consider so far, but now that you say it, it's a very, very good point and definitely one of the challenges. I think what we meant with the higher education was more education in general, not an education and thinking critically and autonomously. This is definitely the challenge that you have to learn this after school. But the general education in terms of knowledge of different topics was the thing that we meant in this case. But a very, very good point. regarding the challenge, and maybe you'll find, or we will find at least a tiny solution for it.
Yeah, I think it will definitely explain a bit more about the challenges we will talk about later, maybe on why this gap might also influence people's inability or not sufficient skills in order to handle the autonomous world that we are developing towards.
Yes.
Can I just add one more point? I don't want to grab the scene. Is also we create people that are not polymathic thinkers or systems thinkers. We're still very siloed. I have previously, before being an academic, I've run companies and I've been in management and all that. So I'm not purely an academic. So I'm coming at it from more than one position when I'm making these comments. That's what I just thought it was relevant at this stage because it's one of those things that we don't tend to think of the inputs into the workspace upstream from people coming in. And I'm talking any age. I'm not talking just from, young generation. I'm talking any age and any culture. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
It's definitely true, and a challenge that we have, that the system is so much schooled, as we say in Germany at least. Okay, so where was I think I wanted to switch to the next slide. So we talked about how great it feels to be autonomous in some ways, as you have the capability to fulfill the autonomy that you're given to, and that we have the need for autonomously working people in today's very complex world. Now the question is, what does actually belong to working autonomously? And this is a question that we want to give back to you again. So what does it mean to work autonomy? What does belong to it? We talked about the feeling before. Now is more the question on what are the prerequisites that you have? What is important for you when working autonomously?
So some specific things at your work that you feel are done in an autonomous way,
or that make your work autonomous.
Yeah, that's a better description. Okay, so you can
go back to Menti and type in your answers. The first answers are flying in.
Maybe also think about more the things that your work consists of in an autonomous way.
So, for example, is it working alone, being autonomous, or working in team? A great team to work with. Able to make decisions, great. Mistakes allowed. Psychological safety, yes.
We already have the consequences here. To make decisions.
Trust. Energy is interesting as well.
Are there more specific things that you do autonomous at work, maybe? Mistakes allowed.
Trust is getting bigger. Independence.
Selecting solution is something that you do autonomously at work. Experimenting.
Leadership support.
Saying when you're working. Clearly defining goals.
I feel like all the answers are given yet.
Okay, then let's see how we can match these answers that you just gave in to the different forms of autonomy at work. That's where we want to head. So you can actually divide into different categories of autonomy or forms at autonomy that in science we define as the most important areas here. So on the one hand, we have scheduling autonomy. You said something like the timing of when I do something. So this is about all things you can control concerning the schedule, the sequence, or the timing of your work activities. So when you start working, which task you do first, and for how long you're working on a task. Then we also have the second area, which is called method autonomy, and this is about the choice that you have on how work tasks can be performed. So it's about what method and approaches can be chosen. And I think you also said something like this. For example, selecting the path and some personal styles on how to do your work. So this is all about the how of your work, how you're doing your tasks. And then last, we have the decision-making autonomy, and this is about the extent to which relevant decisions can be made independently. So this is all about the content of your work, and I think you wrote a lot about that as well. So the decisions you're taking, being allowed to disagree, having a lack of boundaries, selecting specific experiments maybe. So this is all about really decisions you take at work and about the content. Like, for example, who there is the best option to be hired, or which design to use for your product. This is all about the content. Okay, so thank you very much again for giving us your input. And we also want to give you some input, a quick overview on how we live autonomy at Cozy, at our company. So you just get an idea from where we come from. So you have a better understanding on our surroundings and our setup before we dive further into the topic. So big slide, we start at the left up corner. So this is these are the things that we do at Cozy, a selection of what we do to give our employees autonomy. So at Cozy, if you want, you can work fully remote, but you can also come to the office every day. This is up to you, whatever fits best for you, and obviously also your team, in order to work in a good way. We also have trust-based flexible working hours. So this makes it easier for people to combine work with family life, or working part-time, or also as a working student, of which we have some. It's easier to combine those different parts of life. At Cozy, we also decide, or you decide on your own, where your work is most valuable. So it's not about your job description mainly, but about what you feel, where you can contribute the best and put your work in there. And we have, I think, quite special principle at Cozy, which is that the team hires and the team fires. So it's up to the team really to take this decision. We have some kind of special hiring process to support the teams, giving feedback along the way to a new person, for example, and also in taking this decision. But in the end, it's up to the team to decide if a person fits to the company and the team, and also if the person does not fit anymore. Next up, we have education. So at Cozy, you decide if an educational program or training is valuable, and also if it's suitable right now in your current state. And then it's also up to you to organize this for yourself. We also have prioritization here, which is up to you and your team. There's no one else interfering here, so this is also some autonomy that we have here. And we also extend that to the technology that is used in the team. So there's no selection of development languages that are allowed. It's up to the person and the team, the peers, to decide for each use case what's the best option. And last but not least, teams also freely choose the agile method that fits best for their team. Some teams in our company don't even work with agile methods as it's not suitable for the team and they're not working on a product, for example. Yeah, so these are some examples on what we do to give our employees autonomy. And I see there is a question arising, right, David?
Yeah, I can just read it for you if I can. So the team fires, question mark. Any thoughts given to mobbing and group harassment? What rules govern this kind of firing?
Of course, Germany has very strict regulations that protect employees. And this is not something that the team can just decide from one second to another. So we don't like this person anymore. So bye. Of course, there's a process behind it that especially we as Scrum Masters support. We talk to people, of course. The main firing happens in the probation period. So in the first 6 months. And after that, this is something that is not very common with Cozy, but also happened. So if a team really is not happy with the member anymore, there will at first be feedback sessions with this person. And then if it does not get better, there will be harder consequences, and then firing would be the last consequence, of course. So this is not just, I will decide this from one day to another, but definitely supported by a process and especially by the Scrum Masters.
Yeah, so we have like 2 feedback cycle in the probation period, after which the person has the opportunity to adapt to the needs and the must-haves that the team defined. And then also in the end, when it comes to decision, we say, I mean, most of the times we take it practical, but we have in case it comes to this scenario, we say if you have 2 vetoes in the team, that this person should not be part of the company or the team, then this can lead to firing in the probation period.
And in our experience, it is, at least at Cozy, it is very, very hard for the teams to actually decide that the person will not be part of the team anymore, because we all have we always like each other a lot. So even
it's usually the other way around,
it's the other way
we
around.
have to coach the teams in being more strict if they really feel like the person is not fitting. It's usually
that they then draw the hot line, even if it feels not good. Question answered?
I have a follow-up. So yeah, I'm just trying to imagine how this would typically, I mean, in a probation period, yeah, I can see teams being asked for feedback on a new hire, and then you let them go if they're not deemed suitable, and that's easier because they're on probation. If there's some kind of a fallout, and it's an established employee, how does it normally start? That process, it's like, did the team just get together without that person to say, look, we want that person out? I don't know. Have you got examples of that?
We have a quite transparent process here, as we think it's only fair for the person itself, themselves to get the feedback as soon as possible. So that's why we have the first feedback after 2 months.
But that's a Probezeit. He's talking about when it's not in the probation period anymore.
Okay. Yes. All right. When it's not in this period anymore, then we also have we encourage our team members to give feedback. So as Scrum Masters, we have one-on-ones with all of our team members. So we always encourage, if there's some critique coming up in the one-on-ones, we always encourage them to give this feedback directly and also work with this person on adapting here and improving here. But if we really feel that it's not working anymore and there are some fundamental differences, and also the person is not accepting the rules that we have, then we usually gather the people that are in the team or working with this person and ask them on what they think, if there is still potential and we should work together on this, or whether there is some how do you call, like, official Abmahnung, like from from a legal perspective, something that our managers can give them in a written way, but it's usually not their decision but coming from the team. It's rather something that you have to do because there are those legal restrictions there.
So usually it's not a surprise for the person because they have been feedback before that, and yeah, it somehow solves the problem itself.
Yeah,
usually.
But luckily we don't have that often. Most of the
Not at
time
all.
it's more about the hiring process.
Yeah, good to hear. Thank you very much.
Okay, great.
All right, then maybe now let's see what effects we see from those autonomous parts that we have.
Yes. So what are our observations that we had when we gave those high autonomy to the people at COSI, which of course did not happen in one chunk but developed over time. So what we see in our teams is that we can take faster decisions because we have less waiting for authorities to decide on things, but can take the decisions on our own, which makes us overall faster. The second thing is that with high autonomy comes a higher openness to new experiences, as shown by research, and the literature is linked below. And with this higher openness to new experience comes a higher creativity and innovation. And again, this is something that we definitely need to solve the complex problems because we don't have the solutions for them yet. So we need the creativity and innovation to be competitive in today's world. The third thing is the sense of ownership that comes when you're working on a task autonomously. This is very special, or especially for example, developers that have a high sense of ownership for their code, which engages them more. I think we have that again. This is another point, but yeah, it is not only they don't want to make the customer happy, but it's also their intrinsic motivation to deliver a good product because they identify with it. So fourth point, more identification, because people have the possibility to express their values and ideas and identity in what they're doing. So the work becomes a part of their identity, which again leads to a higher job satisfaction. And a higher job satisfaction, of course, comes with a greater health because we're less depressed, more happy, a greater performance, and of course also a higher commitment to the company because you're less likely to quit a job that you really like and appreciate. Another thing that we observed is the enhanced self-efficacy and pride. So at COSI and when being autonomous, people learn a lot. Maybe this is also something in regards to after school and university, people are not used to be autonomous, but when they are in a safe environment where they're given the autonomy and the responsibility to do a great job, then they can grow so much, they can learn so much, and they see this for themselves and they're proud of what they achieve. So this is something that we see a lot. We have a lot of young people here that come from university directly, sometimes as working students and then staying. And this is something that we observed a lot. So they're giving the environment to grow, and they see it and they feel great about it. I just say that we have more engagement in people when they're more autonomous. This was shown in a study from 2014 as well. And we have a better work-life balance when being autonomous because it's not the 9-to-5 job where you have to go to the office anymore, but you can manage your private life a lot easier. It's easier with handling kids, having a bit more freedom, and when you're working and from where. Vacation, I already said that. For me, mainly, I don't know, things like doctor's appointments or something. Makes handling the private life much easier since I have the autonomy and work to manage my times on my own. And everything that we talked about so far sounds like a perfect world, but this talk is called The Dark Side of Autonomy. And even with us, at some point, our perfect world started to crumble. But before we tell you about what we experienced, we want to hear again from you what your struggles with autonomy are. Because you're here, you came to this talk called The Dark Side of Autonomy, so probably you have some challenges, or you face some challenges regarding autonomy yourself. And we're curious about these challenges, and we want you to reflect on them before we go on with the talk, so you maybe find an inspiration for a solution for your private little challenge. And to do so, we don't want you to just type it into Menti, because we think when talking about challenges, this is the first step to solving them. So we would like to send you into breakout sessions of 3 to 4 people, and we will give you 10 minutes in that session where you can exchange about the challenges that you face regarding autonomy. So the reason why you're here maybe, or something that you can reflect on right now that comes to your mind. And we would ask you to capture the results in Mentimeter again, so we have a collection in the end of the challenges you face, and can share it. But we definitely want you to discuss them in the small group and give you the opportunity to make it a bit more individual and more tangible for you. So,
are we ready with the breakout rooms?
We are.
Great.
Perfect. Any questions for the instruction? Anything you need before we go into the rooms?
Good point.
I have one question, just for the benefit of the group. In terms of the feedback or the inputs that you would like each subgroup to provide, is that in Menti?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the Menti screen would be on the right screen for them to input that data?
Yes.
That's correct.
So if you have Menti still open, you should already see the question and should be able to enter responses.
We will also remind you 3 minutes before the end to capture your results in Menti.
Yes, so you don't forget, because when you're in discussion, you easily forget.
Yep. Okay, so you have 10 minutes, spend roughly 7-ish minutes or so having your discussions, and last few minutes in inputting your data. And then once we all come back, then Arabella and Carolin will share the inputs from the Menti that you provided.
Right.
Are you ready? I'm just going to open the room up. Some of you will be in 3s, some of you will be in 4s.
Thank you. See you later. Okay, so we hope you had great and fruitful discussions in your breakout rooms and had time to reflect on the challenges that you currently face. I will not deep dive into what you wrote down. That was funny. Things like data protection can be a blocker. I think we had that the last time that we held the talk. This was a topic as well. It just came to my eye. That's kind of funny. Yeah, so since the time is running, we don't have time to deep dive into your challenges, but you discussed them, so you know, and this is the thing that is important to us, that you reflect on the challenges that you have, so you can now continue thinking on how to solve them, maybe. But at first, we wanted to share what challenges we were facing and what we discovered as the dark side of autonomy. I need to go back there. Okay.
Yeah, so what we actually noticed when giving more and more autonomy to the teams and the people was that people told us some challenges in our one-on-ones mainly, as this is where we have most of direct contact to individuals, and they told us that they feel overwhelmed sometimes, that they are concerned and stressed about taking decisions and taking the right decisions, and it's almost like the different work topics are cluttering in their head and taking too much space for them, and leaving no real room for other things. And I think this is also some of these challenges that you also described, the just the exhaustion and the overwhelm from those decisions. And we also discovered that oftentimes they are feeling some kind of pressure that is not really given from the external, from managers or customers, but it really comes from within. And this made it pretty clear to us that even if our autonomy is declared as a resource, which it definitely is, it can also be perceived as a demand or even a burden sometimes when it feels so overwhelming. So too much of a good thing can be bad, actually. And also what this too much is was also found in scientific research regarding the downsides of autonomy. This is quite new area of research, but more and more papers are coming out on this topic, and we want to share some of them with you. The first one is displayed here, exhaustion. So a state of extreme fatigue that in the worst case can lead to burnout or even depression. So this is something we definitely want to avoid at all costs. And so I think you might be interested on how does this happen? How does autonomy lead to exhaustion? Nowadays we often work in a complex work environment, and we have to handle a lot of company objectives. So, for example, we have to keep in mind the team backlog, to do meetings, work on incidents, keeping in mind different business targets, or even coming up with new ideas and innovating new solutions. This all at once, this all in parallel, and handling all of this complexity comes with a lot of responsibility as well. And we have this, when we have this two combined, this leads to stress and overwhelm. And studies show that this especially is the case if this complexity and responsibility is accompanied by high workload and a lack of support. So a lot to do and no colleague or manager helping you out with this. And there are some other things that can contribute to exhaustion. Several studies showed as well that trust-based flexible working hours that are used more and more can lead to self-exploitation. So people disregard their own limits. We have less switching off and less boundaries sometimes because of those flexible working hours. And so working life and private life tend to blend in more. And in this setup, people might intensify their work and accept overtime. And this can lead to burnout as well, which is quite dangerous. Things that make this more likely to happen are peer pressure. So in a performance culture, this happens quite a lot. And also a phenomenon that's called social change, which I think is quite interesting. This means that you feel the urge of giving something in return. So due to social exchange, employees may feel obligated to put in some extra effort in return for those flexible working opportunities that the employer gave to them. And in order to give some beneficial benefit for the employer for these opportunities. And this can be highly dangerous. So these are the more detailed information on exhaustion, and we briefly want to introduce some other two demands that we have. And the first one is role ambiguity. So we can imagine if it's not only about your core job description and you have all these options, all those different areas you can also put work in, that it's quite hard to define when am I good enough? When is what I'm doing enough? If it's okay where I put my work in right now, are these even the borders of my role, or where does it extend to? And this can lead to a lot of unclarity here. And we have a third area that autonomy can lead to, another detrimental effect. And this is unethical behavior, which already sounds quite dangerous. So what this means is autonomy can increase that people are so much focused on the goal that they want to achieve that they don't really keep in mind all these other things that you usually should have in mind when it comes to your work. For example, data protection guidelines or some testing that is quite crucial for your work. So these are things, if no one is controlling it, they might fall under the table. So I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me when I say that these are consequences we should avoid at all costs and protect our work environment from.
So the big question is now, how do we master autonomy? And we now know about the detrimental effects of autonomy, but still we don't want to miss out on the huge benefits it can give us, and the creativity, the higher job satisfaction, everything that we pointed out in the beginning. So how can we master that so we have the benefits but can get rid of the detrimental effects? And we want to give you some examples on how to do that. And those are, some parts are principles that are backed from research, and some things are just tools that we experience as helpful in our environment. So there are many things. Hopefully you will get something that you can take home for yourself, for your challenge, or get inspired to find your own solution for your challenge. This is what this talk actually is about. So the first thing that I want to write literally very big when talking about how to master autonomy is alignment. Because alignment is the basic prerequisite for autonomy to work. It enables people to take the right decisions and reduces insecurity, so exhaustion as well. And alignment is just something that you need so autonomy can work. And something that shows this very well is the alignment autonomy matrix. In the alignment autonomy matrix, in the lower left corner, we have low autonomy and low alignment. So people have no alignment, they're no autonomy, they're micromanaged by their managers or bosses. And but even though but they also have no alignment, so they're working into different directions. They're micromanaged, unhappy, and working not to a common goal. So this is a very unsuccessful organization, I'd say. If we have high autonomy and low alignment, then people are happily working on what they think is best for their company or their job that they're hired to do. But since they're not aligned and the company is maybe not only 3 people, they are working in totally different directions, so not towards a common goal, and the company cannot benefit from the highly motivated workers that do what they think is best. So what we definitely need for autonomy to work is a high alignment. Of course, we can have a high alignment and a low autonomy, and I think you saw this upper half of the matrix before. A company can work like this with low autonomy, but we need the alignment so we walk in the same direction and achieve a common goal. And this is how companies worked for decades, and it was fine. But now we have the more complex problems. Now we need the high autonomy of people so they can put all their knowledge, all their individuals into solving the problem, or their creativity, so we can solve those complex problems that we have right now. So actually where we want to go is in the upper right corner of the alignment autonomy matrix, because this is where we can solve the complex problems in a collaborative way.
Carolin, there's one question. Just I should have probably asked this earlier, but the question is alignment with what?
Alignment with the company goals. So this is what I just wanted to say. So how do we create alignment? So alignment means, in this case, or it may not be the company, but the team, but people need to agree on a goal and work towards this goal together, because otherwise we're in the lower half of the alignment autonomy matrix, where people are working into different directions and we don't get the benefits. We want them to walk in the same directions so we can reach a common goal. So alignment means it can be alignment on whatever, but it needs to be a common goal for a team, for a company. So for example, or as a team, as a company, you need a goal, you need a vision. It has to be clear and it has to be communicated and transparent, and you have to tell people again and again. There are frameworks that support this, for example, Scrum, where you have the sprint goals every sprint, and the sprint goal is the holy grail for the Scrum team. But there's also frameworks on the company level like OKR, where you set very concrete goals every 3 months and then make them very transparent to everyone so people know where they should go and they can put all their forces into reaching those common goals.
And you can even transfer this to the unethical behavior we addressed before, agreeing and aligning in a way of what are our standards and where we are working towards, like, for example, making testing part of this. Really having an understanding of what is are your core values, and that you as a team and in every as a company and in every single team and as an individual can work towards.
Yes, so we will break this down a bit more in the next slides. But yeah, the first answer, or the first thing you should look at when you feel like you have a challenge with autonomy, is alignment, because without alignment, autonomy will not work. But we have more detailed things that we brought to you, and we put those into 5 different categories, and we will walk you through those. And the first one is the Agile supporting systems, as I already mentioned, Scrum and OKR, but now I will give back to Arabella.
Yes, so we will use for this part, again, the icons that you saw before in order to show you for each intervention the detrimental effect it could protect us from. So we have the empty purple battery that shows exhaustion, burnout. We have the orange stop sign that stands for unethical behavior. And we also have the blue mask, you'll see that one a bit later, which symbolizes role ambiguity. And we now want to show you some solutions or some options that might be inspiring for you as well.
Maybe just a quick addition, this do not only solve the detrimental effects or make them better, but also support the benefits that we can get from autonomy, of course, as well. But that would be too many icons.
Too many positive effects. Okay, so let's have a closer look on the Agile support system. So why we put that here? Frameworks like Scrum can reduce the requirements for method autonomy, as they give us information to set priorities and as a team, as an individual, and it gives us the opportunity to reduce the complexity that we are having in this setup. And that's like the main benefit that we can take from this. And here's some examples on how Agile support systems can do this. So on the one hand, we have the retrospective, which can be a room for reflection and to open up with your emotions, to address unclarities and overwhelm or some work conflicts. And this really is the space to receive support from your team and also to feel heard. And this can help a lot when you're feeling exhausted, and also to create some more alignment here as well. And we really want to encourage you to not only do a retrospective as a brief inspect and adapt, but take it seriously and really give the space and the time for some depth here in order to give people the safe space. Then we have the daily as an example for continuous channel for communication, and the option for asking for support, which can also help with exhaustion and burnout, or to protect us from that. And of course, we also have the iterative planning approach, which is a broader term describing that we repeatedly are setting goals and evaluate those short-term goals. As Carolin said, we have this clear focus on our sprint goal, which creates alignment, it gives orientation, but we also want to have small tickets that we focus on, and this gives us this sense of achievement to be more engaged in our work, and also offers us the option for little breaks in between to give us some time to grasp some air. So we can see that boundaries, for example, of a framework sometimes can help us actually. And this is also our next category, boundaries and responsibilities. And this is especially important when it comes to role ambiguity, because there it is quite important to define those clear responsibilities that you have. And for example, how we do this at Cozy, we say that a product owner and a scrum master is always set for a team, and this can already take some burden away from the developers as they know they don't have to focus mainly on where the product has to go and where the team has to develop themselves. So these are some responsibilities that are mainly on those roles. And something that also helps us creating some clarification and separation here is regularly reflecting on our roles. And we do this, for example, at the beginning of a project all together, but we also like to do this with our peers. So, for example, the Scrum Masters. And we brought you an example of how we do this as Scrum Masters at Cozy, how we work on this continuously. This is the Scrum Master wheel, we call it. And we defined here some different sectors that we perceive as the pillar stones of the Scrum Master role at Cozy specifically, and on which of them we focus on the most or want to focus on. And this gives us orientation when we have to prioritize different areas, different tasks we could take on. And this is also a tool that we can constantly evaluate and also adapt if needed. Some other boundaries and responsibilities that we are having are concerning quality standards, as I think we already mentioned. So, for example, continuous deployment that we want to work towards, testing standards, and also, for example, some rules for technology decisions that we have. We say, for example, that if you decide on a specific technology in your project, then you should have at least 3 people that agree on this technology and would be willing to take over some work here or jump in if you are not there. So this is something that we do in order to have some standard here. And these are some examples on how to make sure that we align, and this way decisions and also the mental load that comes with decisions can be reduced, and we can increase more identification with good coding standards, for example. Another thing that contributes here is the limiting of contacts and projects, as we realize that it's ideal to have one project at a time, maximum 2 parallel projects, as this also reduces some mental load and leads to less exhaustion here. So some things are, as you see, good to be limited, and there are other things that are better to be expanded, like knowledge and transparency, and we want to look further into that.
Okay, so the third category is share information, so transparency. And we, for example, value a lot in organizational transparency. So we have regular all-hand meetings where we talk, for example, about the financial status of the organization. So we talk about how many costs we had, or how much costs we had in the last quarter, and how much money came in. So everyone at Cozy is aware of our financial status. But we are also talking about, I don't know, what is going on in the company, events, what different teams are doing or struggling with right now. So everybody is kind of well informed about the general ongoings in the organization. And having this background information makes it easier to take good decisions. Yeah, so it is just something that we know and can consider when taking decisions and following our autonomy. The more concrete knowledge transfer happens, for example, in mob and pair programming sessions. This could also be in the Agile supporting systems, maybe, because it's an XP practice. But yeah, for us, it is very important for sharing information, because it does not happen only explicitly, so we're telling people what we know, but it also shares implicit knowledge. When we watch each other working on a problem together, then we share a lot of implicit knowledge that we would not tell the other person just like that. So pair programming reduces the unethical behavior as well, because we set common standards, but we also get support by others when working on a problem together. Moreover, we have communities of practice and community events overall. Communities of practice is where all people of the same profession meet at Cozy. So for example, all Scrum Masters or all front-end developers, for example, they meet on a regular interval and talk about whatever interests them. So maybe the latest technology changes, or a specific problem that they face with the customer right now, for example. So they organize these meetings, this community of practice on their own. They set the topics, they decide what they talk about. Yeah, and this is something to, again, share knowledge, to set also standards in their profession, and yeah, sharpen their role as well. So every front-end developer at Cozy knows what is kind of expected from them in a team, because those are the things that they discuss in the community of practice. Of course, to be able to share this information, to live this standard of transparency, you need a very open culture. So culture is something that is very important to us. And the thing that is most important to us in the culture is the support that we give to each other. So at Cozy, we're not such a big company. We're about 50 people, but we have an overall network with all the employees. So we're not only part of a team, but also of the company. We are working in company internal things, for example, a hiring tool that we wrote ourselves and supporting ourselves. People meet when developing this, for example, or we have events like on the picture in the background, where we come together and spend time together, get to know each other, because it is very important to us to have this culture of support, that you cannot only ask people in your team for help, but everyone. Help is just a Slack message away. This is something that we really live, and that we observe a lot, and people tell us a lot when they come from other companies to Cozy. It's like, the support you get here is amazing. And again, this also comes with welcoming new ideas and also mistakes. We already heard the term before. This is actually just an explanation for psychological safety. So it is okay to come up with new ideas. This is what we want. We want creativity, we want innovation. And of course, we don't know all the solutions to the complex problems we have yet, so mistakes will happen, and this is fine. And we need to create a psychological safe space where people can open up about their ideas. And having the space reduces a lot of pressure and makes innovation possible. And actually, if I have to say a second thing after alignment that enables autonomy, it is psychological safety. So first thing, autonomy, alignment, then psychological safety. If you have problems, look at those two things. And the third thing that we have in our culture is that we look for the need for autonomy. So we as a company are internally very transparent, but we're also very open to the outside, as you maybe noticed, because we tell you a lot about how our company works and what we're doing. So it is important to us to tell people that we are autonomously working, that people that work at Cozy have a high responsibility in their teams, in their organization. So people know that before they join us, and that we hire people that want to do exactly this, that are looking for this kind of work environment. Because yes, autonomy is a basic human need, but in some people, this need is stronger than in others. And maybe this is also an answer to the concern in the beginning that people coming right from the university did not learn yet to handle this autonomy. So we are looking explicitly for the people that either can already handle this autonomy or want to learn it. And this is the very important thing for us. So there's another buzz phrase that we usually have for us is hiring for attitude, train for skill. And this also works for autonomy with us. The last category.
Yes, so we also work with people on the individual level, not only as a company or in the whole team, but really with every individual person on their ability to fully use autonomy as a resource. And how can you do this? So at first, you can train your employees. So for example, give them access to data protection training in order to make them aware of the things they have to consider when they're working, but also some trainings on Scrum, for example, in order for them to fulfill their role accordingly and to feel safe and good with their roles. We also like to give access or develop some feedback workshops, for example, in order to enable clear and effective communication, which then helps people to open up if they need some help or if they need some other kind of interaction with their colleagues. Another thing that I think we addressed sometimes in this talk is the one-on-ones that we are having with every employee. And you can imagine this a bit like a coaching session with the Scrum Master. So we Scrum Masters also have some coaching background and focus on training in that as well. So we can open up the space for the individual person to address their concerns and working on resilience. So really paying attention to the own needs and also strengthening the self-responsibilities for those needs, addressing them, and working on the ability to use autonomy more as a resource, looking on the things that we can do with it, how we can handle also the downsides, and to see it more as a resource and building the skills in order to see it more as a resource than as a burden. And one last thing you can do is educating on job crafting. Job crafting is a way of working where you design your job in a way, you craft your job. You can do this either on a behavioral level, so really focusing on the task of your job that fulfill you as a person, that contribute to your values, and that you feel are adding to your purpose. But you can also do this on a cognitive level, crafting your role and your understanding of your role. And this helps a lot with feeling in contact with your role, with your work, feeling the purpose of it, and therefore having less exhaustion, being more engaged, and feeling less lost here. You can do, for example, trainings for this. If you are further interested in this, I wrote my master thesis about this. So if there are any questions concerning this and how to do that, just reach out to me. Yeah, so those were our ideas, a selection of examples on how to master autonomy and reduce the less greater impacts it can have. And yeah, now we are interested what you take from that, and yeah, what you might try.
Yes. Because the way to perfection consists of small steps, and we're not there yet as well. So hopefully we inspired you to find a solution for your, or at least a first step for a solution for your individual challenge. And
yeah, so we are happy to hear from you what your ideas are, maybe, or what you take from it.
Maybe Carolin, Arabella, just before that, there's a few questions that have been posed. Maybe it's worth just taking those. So Martin asks, how do you drive or capture the current desired culture of the company and then actioning the change?
How do we design? Can you repeat, maybe?
Yeah, sure. How do you drive or capture the current desired culture of the company and then action the change?
So the current culture and the desired culture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tough question, because this is something that of course developed very slowly with us. I think when we are with customers, yeah, it can be frustrating if the people are not willing to take the autonomy, take the responsibility. But I think the first step there is to, of course, understand the reasons why they don't want to, because you just learned it is actually a basic human need to be willing to work autonomously. So there have to be reasons why they don't want this. This might be fear, so it could be a problem with psychological safety. It might be insecurity about insecurity, same psychological safety. Again, look at alignment. Do people know where they should be go? What is expected from them as well? Talk to them, make clear what the benefits are, what the great sides of autonomy and responsibility are. And yeah, just open a conversation about it, try to understand what the reasons are, and then slightly walk into the direction of autonomy, or more autonomy and more responsibility, giving them the support they need, giving them the boundaries they need in the beginning, and then open it up a bit from time to time.
I also think that culture is maybe the most difficult part, as this is the area where we most of the times cannot have a direct impact or directly influence, for example, psychological safety, or those emergent constructs that are quite difficult to address and to capture. So I think really what it comes to here is understanding first, and getting to know the system that you want to create change in, and where you want to improve the culture, so to say. In order to do that, you first have to, as you said, understand that and build on that, those needs.
And maybe also be aware that the people that are there form the culture. So if you try to change the culture, you might lose people. And this is just perfectly natural. But if you really want to change the culture, you have to be willing to accept this.
And maybe just to add as well to that point, I think it's also beneficial if we ask the people themselves, this is where we are, this is where we want to go, how do you think we can get there? And they will come up with a whole bunch of ideas for the company to consider and implement. And that probably is your most powerful one, at least in my opinion, because you're listening to the people.
Yeah. In a training, we talked about the EDGE model. I think it was called. I don't know who it was from. I think you will find it when you call the EDGE model, and you can just show people the one side of the edge, so where we are right now, and the other side. Let them paint the picture of the other side, ask them where they are and where they want to go. Yeah.
Thank you. There's another sort of question / comment from Christina. She says, maybe it's just me, but a lot of the things that you mentioned help to support or create autonomy. But in the beginning, you suggested or make the assumption that autonomy is a given in a lot of the spaces. Question mark.
I'd say it's rather about focusing on autonomy as a resource and enabling, because we know that we cannot stop this transformation to more autonomous working spaces. Even though we are not there everywhere already, I think it's obvious that the trend goes in this direction. And also we want this trend to happen as there are a lot of benefits. So our approach is to foster it as a resource, I'd say. So it's a combination of giving more autonomy in a way, but in a positive way. We also should be in a continuous dialogue on where we might have too much, because we talked about the different areas in which you can have autonomy, and for the different areas there might be a different level that's fitting best your current situation. So it's not always more is better or less is worse.
Can I clarify just in terms of, so you said it's looking at autonomy as a resource, but I just wanted to clarify, because some of the things in terms of, like you mentioned, the agile support systems, right? And kind of giving transparency to the team. You talked about pair programming and focusing on a goal to kind of get towards that autonomy. But I think the real question is, so the dark side of autonomy, you've mentioned, is exhaustion, which happens in companies where there is no autonomy, right? And also role ambiguity, it also happens in companies where there is no autonomy. So that kind of becomes the question of, is it the case that the dark side that you're suggesting, is this helping to move towards autonomy? Because I would have a question as somebody who's worked for a very long time, where I'm in scenarios where it's very control oriented and exhaustion exists and role ambiguity exists because the system hasn't properly defined it. But if the focus is that autonomy has a dark side, I do see the thing in terms of not limiting, as an individual, you don't limit the amount of time that you do work. But it doesn't clearly kind of show that this dark side of autonomy is completely different than what exists in the other kind of control-oriented world.
I understand that. And actually, these are not only our observations, but it's also backed in research that these are consequences that come from autonomy, which does not say that these consequences can also happen in other work areas. But we just want to make sure that when we are in an autonomous work environment, which we want, that we also have a look on those potential dangers that can be there. As we said, there are mainly advantages, but if you are on the extreme levels, and I think we are there sometimes in agile setups, then you should just back up so you're prepared for these disadvantages that could come.
Yeah, so it's about supporting autonomy and that it can work in the way we want to, and that we don't have the detrimental effects that we have in controlled ways of working as well. Maybe the exhaustion comes more from frustration that you cannot move something, that you cannot bring in your identity. So I think there are different reasons for it. But yes, the result is the same, but we don't want it in the controlled, I always struggle with it, in the controlled environment, and we don't want to have it in the autonomous environment. And these are ways on how to support that this does not happen and that we only get the benefits. Does it make it a bit clearer?
Oh, no,
so I think we've probably got time for one more question. So I'm not sure, Christopher, if yours is a question or just a statement, but I can see Amanda has put a question that is definitely a question. It's got a question mark at the end. So recently, what about the big tech that have pronounced about forced direction back to people coming back to the office? Does that also impact autonomy?
To some point, I guess, yes. I don't know about the concrete rules that they're setting. Of course, coming to the office has benefits as well. For example, I go to the office 3 times a week because I want to, because I see all the benefits I get from it. Yeah, forcing people to do it definitely messes a bit with their autonomy, but it can be also a boundary that you set as a company to catalyze the benefits and maybe miss out on some of the detrimental effects. So
it's hard to give a yes or no answer.
Yeah, I think it depends. So it can be a useful boundary that we had as a resource in the category as well. But yes, of course, it reduces the freedom of the people. But
I would say tendency is it impairs autonomy. As we should maybe more ask, why do you have to force? What are the reasons behind that you cannot give this autonomous decision to your people? So maybe first work on that before you have to take those strict rules, to say.
Hi there, Jeff Watts here, and like me, I'm sure you loved that session because it's another example of becoming great at Agile. We're proud to sponsor Agile Northants here at Agile Mastery Institute because, like us, the people of Agile Northants know that mastery matters. And we're on a mission to make Agile certification meaningful. We want to change the paradigm so that when people think of Agile certification, they think of a pathway of actual, real, deep learning over time. Not just learning good practice, but reflecting on that practice and tailoring the learning to the context of the learner. So at Agile Mastery Institute, we don't just offer 2-day classes. We offer at least 6 months worth of support, a combination of classroom, of coaching sessions, and community support. So you know that you will get some great practice content and theory and skills development, but also you will be able to direct that learning through your bespoke coaching sessions over the course of at least 6 months. This will help you in your role, it'll help your employers, it'll help your teams, and it'll help regain respect for Agile certification throughout the industry. So if you believe Agile certification matters, then come along to one of our cohorts. We've got licensed guides around the world offering flexible programs over time zones and cadence. Check out agilemasterinstitute.com for your options. And I've personally got a few cohorts coming up where if you're quick and you use the code NORTHMASTERY, then you could get up to 25% off, but you have to be quick to get those discounts. If you've got any questions about any of it, how the pathways work, how it could work for you, how it could work for your organization, then just drop me a note and I'll happily explain more. But until then, keep on doing great Agile.